Hello everyone and welcome to the Pollination. I'm going to be speaking about quite a bit different topic here, and you've seen by the headline there, by the title, that New York approves composting of human bodies. And I'm going to read an article here. I'll get through the article and then I'll start talking a little bit more about it, but I just want you to be on the same page that I am. This is an article from the BBC News. It's an article written by James FitzGerald from the BBC News, and I'll also put up a Getty image of the composting. It's not really the facility, but it is from what you see here. It's from Recompose. That's the name of the company in Seattle, Washington. So yes, they're not just doing this in New York. This is nothing new. So they've been doing it in, well, we'll get into the article, but it's nothing new. I'm just talking about it because it was just recently approved and I want to know your opinion. So let's get through the article here. So New York has become the latest U.S. state to allow so-called human composting. A person can now have their body turned into soil after their death, which is seen as an environmentally friendly alternative to a burial or cremation. Also known as, quote, natural organic reduction, unquote. Now they use a lot of quotes, so I'll be doing this. Natural organic reduction. The practice sees a body decompose over several weeks after being shut in a container. I'm assuming at this point that it is a closed static bin. In 2019, Washington was the first U.S. state to legalize it. Colorado, Oregon, Vermont, and California followed suit. New York is therefore the sixth American jurisdiction to allow human composting, following Saturday's stamp of approval from Kathy Hochul, the state's Democratic governor. The process happens in special above-ground facilities. A body is put in a closed vessel along with selected materials such as wood chips, alfalfa, straw grass, and gradually breaks down under the action of microbes. So here we have microbiology in action. After a period of around a month and a heated process to kill off any contagion, loved ones are given the resulting soil. This can be used in planting flowers, vegetables, or trees. So now we have loved ones being used and their nutrients are going in and making everything bloom, and you are eating from it too if you're using it in your garden. One U.S. firm called Recompose has said its service can save a ton of carbon compared with a cremation or a traditional burial. Emissions of carbon dioxide are a major contributor to climate change because they act to trap the Earth's heat in a phenomenon known as the greenhouse effect. This is something that's been, ever since I was a kid, was taught about greenhouse gases. So everybody knows about that. Traditional burials involving a coffin also consume wood, land, and other natural resources. Proponents of human composting say it is not only a more environmental option, but also a more practical one in cities where land and cemeteries is limited. So picture your really big cities such as New York City, or even Tokyo, where there's not a whole lot of land usage for cemeteries. New York's approval of the process was a huge step for accessible green death care nationwide. One Washington-based provider, Return Home, the name of the company, told the New York Post. But for some, there are ethical questions about what happens to the soil which results from the composting. Catholic bishops in New York State reportedly opposed the legislation, arguing that human bodies should not be treated like household waste. Concerns have also been raised about the cost of composting, but the firm Recompose, whose facility in Seattle is one of the world's first, says its $7,000 fee is comparable, quote unquote, with rival options. The median sum of the U.S. for a funeral with a burial was $7,800 in 2021, or $7,000 for a funeral with a cremation, according to the National Funeral Directors Association, the NFDA. Human composting is already legal throughout Sweden, and natural burials in which a body is buried without a coffin or with a biodegradable coffin are permanent in the UK. So this has been going on for quite a while, but it's just kind of hit the news recently with New York's legalizing of it. So, I had many questions when I heard about this, and I could kind of always wondered, would it go that direction? And I've often joked around with my family saying that, when I die, just put me under the apple tree and I'll go on providing you for the rest of my life, rest of your life, or however you want to look at that. And as a kid, you always hear people talk like, I don't care what you do with me. I don't care if you just throw me off into a ditch. I don't care. Don't care what you do with my body. Of course, you can't do that. You can't legally do that. You can't just put somebody in a ditch and let the animals, and the vultures just feed off you. Okay? And nobody would want to do that with their loved one, because that's not a very good closure for them, even if that is their wishes, right? So, and I did wonder, though, how long does the process take, and what happens with the bones, right? So, I'm sure that Recompose, you can go there and that they can tell you, but there's another company that kind of explains it. And again, the links will be down below. Everything that I talk about, I'll link to. It is a funeral home called Return Home, and they speak about what they do with the bones. And basically, after the flesh has been composted, they take the bones out and they put them through a grinder or a crusher, and they break them into smaller pieces, and then they reintroduce it back into the static bin. And from there, it takes another month to decompose the bones, or to compost the bones. Decompose, compost, they're the same, but yet they're different. Okay. I'm not going to get into that, but that's basically what happens. So now, after the 2-month process is finished, you have basically soil now that I guess either they can use in their acres and put back into the soil, or whatever their sanctuary is with plants and stuff, or you can bring your loved one home in a however they package it up. I haven't done the research on that, but and I, when I first heard this, it's like it creeps me out. But then I got to thinking, this is what's been going on for probably thousands of years, when people weren't put in coffins and they weren't put in tombs, in cemeteries and stuff like that, especially people who couldn't afford it. It's like, we just put them in the ground. Some people, would just be put in their backyard, and, the cross or whatever tombstone would be put there, and right there they are, and they would decompose, and the animals, the nature would come in, and we know the song, The worms crawl in, the worms crawl out, the worms play pinochle in your snout. We all sang that growing up as kids, but, and that's just like, I was thinking, like, this is kind of what happens anyway, what used to always happen. And then we got, more conscious about it, and it's like, no, we want to treat our loved ones with more dignity and more respect. And so I got a little more comfortable about this. And even though joking around about it, with my family, it's, not my wishes to go out this way, but you need to respect the wishes of your loved ones. So another thing, along with being creeped out and then doing a little more research, and I found it fascinating. And then I kind of started thinking about, does this open up a brand new industry for worm farmers or for worm composters? Those who create castings or grow worms by the squirm. And would it be something that you would be interested in getting into, or something that you would want to provide? What are the legalities of it? What are the city ordinances, permits, licensing, regulations, all of that red tape stuff? You got to think about that. It definitely, certainly seems very plausible and lucrative. And boy, I wrote about many different ways to make money off of worm uses, different possibilities. And this is another one. I've never talked about this one, but I'd like to know what your feelings are about it. Obviously, there are different ways. You could go the anaerobic route, or you could go the anaerobic route. To me, it seems like it's all a closed system and it's done anaerobically. Both processes could be, they can have different outcomes. Personally, I feel that if you introduce worms and other things like you involve an entomologist or the microbiology of it, or the oligocotology of it, which is the worm aspect. You involve all that, and you could have a much better compost for whatever you want to use it for. Now, with all that said, my father passed away a year and a half ago, and he never said what he wanted with his remains. He just wanted to be cremated. And that does go out into the atmosphere, and it goes into a carbon form, and of course the plants will bring that back in and use it and benefit from it. However, some people are against it. This one, if you want to compost your loved one, is about $7,000 to $8,000 versus cremation, which does involve petrochemicals because they have to crank that furnace up. It's a lot cheaper. For us it was about $1,000, but we were abiding by his wishes, and we still have him, by the way, on the hutch in an urn, and in some ways it's mentally comforting. So if somebody's put in a tomb or in a cemetery coffin or whatever, it's nice to be able to go to the cemetery for a lot of people. I mean, probably millions of people, to be able to go there and have some sort of closure. Now, the funeral is the closure, but you can continue to go there and visit them, and I use that lightly, but it is part of the healing process. It's part of the mental healing process of going and honoring them in such a fashion, you can't necessarily do that with composting your loved one. However, if that is the way that they want to be, if they want, how they want their remains to be treated, then for you, you have to accept that and honor that and know that that is how they wanted to go. And that has to be mentally healing, knowing that is you're honoring them in the way that they wanted to be disposed of. Or excuse me, that's really not the right way to say it. You're not disposing of the person. You are just, as this company calls it, returning home, which we came from dust, we go back to dust. So anyway, this fascinates me, and I want to know what your opinion is, because there's a lot of worm farmers out there. I've gotten a lot of people into the worm business and into composting. Is this something that creeps you out? Does it fascinate you? Does it disgust you? Are you intrigued by it? Is this something that you want to get into? Does this open up a lucrative business for you? Because I can understand that it can not only be, you can make money from it, but you can also honor somebody in the way that they want to go after they die, the way that they want to be returned back to the soil and not leave the carbon footprint behind in the cremation process. It's a win-win-win, really, for the loved one, for them, and for the soil. Again, it's what was going on many years ago, even if putting in a pine box, because the creatures would come in and they would basically dispose of you. And it still goes on today, with the wars and the way that they have to bury the bodies in big ditches. It's very sad that there can't be a closure for war victims. But my heart goes out for anybody that is buried in mass ditches like that and then covered up. But that's another topic. But I want to know what do you, leave your comments below, because I'm really fascinated by this. So are we starting to open up a whole new quote-unquote can of worms? Is this the way that the U.S. is going now, and is it going to become more and more and more popular? Can we introduce the worms? Can we do it anaerobically? Will they allow us to do it anaerobically? And will the states just start loosening their, their laws on that, like they've been doing a lot of different things, So I mean, this is religious, this is political, this is all kinds of different things. Whatever your standard is, that's not the point. The point is, this is what is happening. It's law now, so I want to know, are you doing this now? Do you want to do it? How do you feel about it? This is YouTube. Leave your comments down below. I'll keep the dialogue open. So I guess there's nothing more to say, but go and read the articles, watch the video, and they can explain it to you. Like I said, everybody's talking about it now, since almost every media outlet is talking about it since it came out, I guess, on Saturday. This is January of 2022, the first of the week. So that's all I got to say on it. So hope you found this interesting, and let me know what you think. Okay, so I'll see you next video.